Hello and welcome. This is a GCSE Eduqas Comp 1 walkthrough for the set text Quality Street. In this text, we will explore the advert's context, its media language, and the issues of representation. As you watch the video, there will be on occasion this pause button, and it's an opportunity for you to complete any reflective tasks at that point. This Quality Street advert was first produced in 1956. It's an advert for a box of chocolates. The name of the chocolates, Quality Street, comes from the title of a play produced some 20 years before in 1936 by J.M. Barrie, more famously known as the author of Peter Pan by Us. 1956, when this advert was produced, was just 2 years after the end of rationing. Throughout the Second World War and for the best part of a decade after, foodstuffs were rationed for the general public. And so this very vibrant ad, and for chocolate, a luxury item, marked the end of that rationing. It was an exciting time. It was a time of a new beginning in Britain. What follows is a short film that explains rationing and the joy that was felt at the end of rationing.
Ration books. Apply now for the new ration book for food, the personal ration book, the clothing book. And don't forget your identity card.
There wasn't enough food to go round. So to make sure that nobody had too much, it was rationed.
Everybody was given a ration book, and which was about 4x4, and it was beige.
They were divided into squares so that you could cut out the first week, the second week, and so on.
It had to be registered with a certain grocers, so you could only buy your groceries there.
Everybody should have got a fair share. It didn't rely upon your pocket. It relied upon the availability, how much there was as to how much you would get.
Yes, madam. During this 4-week period, you're entitled to an extra pound of sugar on every ration book.
Fats, lard, butter, margarine, sugar, tea.
Meat was rationed, firstly because an awful lot of the meat came from overseas. And that could be in a ship, bagged to the bottom of the sea with the sailors that were carrying it.
Butter, I think you got 2 ounces a week. Well, 2 ounces is as much as an egg, and that's not an awful lot.
Eggs have come out of their shells these days. They've changed from this to this.
I was very fond of eggs, and then we had to have, eventually, egg powder, powdered eggs, which we got used to.
Good farming and good weather have produced a lot of fine grub. Look here. There's more than 2 veg to this joint, and we've got to eat them up.
There was never enough of the good stuff. Oh, there was lots of things like potatoes and peas and greens.
Fruit was in very short supply. I remember queuing up for oranges, which you got on a blue ration book occasionally. Otherwise, there were no oranges and no lemons. There were apples, but I didn't like apples.
There was an awful lot of stewed apple in the sweets. I suppose there were a lot of that. There's the one thing that did grow in England. We didn't have to import apples.
If he's fed up with his food, she gets the blame. But there are always new ideas about.
I think it was the drabness of the food that got one down, the sameness of it, that it was just eating for subsistence rather than for any kind of pleasure.
So this advert from 1956 is in stark contrast to the drab world of the 1940s and rationing. And it echoes the political spirit at the time, and a slogan that was bandied about was, it was a time to set the people free. And chocolate, being a luxury item, became affordable. So the vibrancy of the advert, coming out of the harsh world of the 1940s and the Second World War, the end of rationing in the 1950s, begins that time of hope in Britain. Okay, in a second, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and have a look at the questions that appear on the screen, and using both the fact file and your knowledge organisers and the video itself, try and answer the questions that are there. Okay, for this part of the video, we will look at media language. If we begin with looking at the text composition, the way that it's structured. To begin with, notice how the advert is structured into 3 distinct parts. In this section, we're presented with an informative and enticing copy. The audience is offered the brand Macintosh as an endorsement of its high quality. The copy informs us with the use of the superlative of 18. Yes, 18 delightfully different choices. And the alliterative D is continued in the question, what a delicious dilemma. And on the left, there are 3 examples of those 18. Notice the vibrant and rich colours, the ruby reds and the golds, suggesting its luxury. It is in the central section of the advert that we see the drama. The suited male sits rather smugly flanked by 2 women who kiss him, and the prize sits on his lap. He is the hunter, the hero, returned in victory. Notice too the women's clothing, how they echo the wrapping of the chocolates. You could argue that they are objectified as such. The clothing or wrapping connects them. They are his too. They are his prize. This in turn begs the question, just whose delicious dilemma is this? What is the dilemma? Is it what sweet to have? What woman to choose? It is the upper section of the advert that takes us to the J.M. Barrie play Quality Street, with its principal characters Miss Sweetly and Major Quality. From their observation point, they witness the pleasure and joy of the chocolate selection. Miss Sweetly and Major Quality observe from the past his uniform and her dress, suggesting a more prosperous period. The regency of refinement and style, a symbolic glimpse from the past of a happier time to a new beginning in Britain, of course through chocolate. Just as we did with the social context, here's an opportunity to pause the video and have a go at the questions. The final concept to consider is representation. What is perhaps interesting here is the gender and power relations in the advert. Notice how the man sits central in the ad. He holds both the position of power and of course he holds the prize. The glittering prize sits symbolically on his lap. He is the Propian hero. He's successful in the world. He is the focus in the home. This all suggests a representation of a patriarchal society, of course. But perhaps we can read it deeper and suggest that it's not just patriarchal, but even a misogynistic society. Could it be argued that in the action of the image, the women are attempting to divert the man's attention with their affectionate kisses, while in truth they are stealing the prize? Is it a warning to men on the duplicity of women? Or a further reading is to suggest the shift in women's power. Does the advert look forward in time to the social revolution a decade ahead in the women's movement and the rise of feminism in the 1960s? And for the last time, here's an opportunity to pause the video and consider following questions. Okay, so that was the walkthrough for the Quality Street text. Hope it was useful. Email us if you've got any questions and follow us on Twitter.